Chapter 2, verses 1 to 10. Sanjaya Uvacha Tam Tata Kripaya Vishtam Ashupurna Pudekshanam Vishitantamikam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Utastvakashmalamidam Vishame samupastitam Anadyajushtamasvargyam Akirtikaram-arjuna Daivyam asmagamappartha Naitattvayupapadyate Shudram hridaya daurbalyam Tyaktvotishtha parantapa Arjuna uvacha Katham bhishmamaham sankhe Dronam cha madhusudana Vishuddhi pratijyotyami Ujathavarisuddhana Guruna hatvahi mahanubhavan Shreyo bhoktum bhaishyamapi haloke Harvatakamantu guru nihaiva Bhunjiya bhogan rudira pradibdhan Nachaitasritnakataranno gariyaha Yadvajayema yadivano jayeyuhu Yaneva hatvanajihidishamaha Devastika pramute ghatarashtraha Karpanyadoshopahatasvabhavaha Pritchami tvam dharma sammudachetaha Yashreyasyanishchitam lokitanme Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam Nahi prapashyami mamapanodhyat Yachokamuchoshanamindriyanam Avapya bhumavasapatnamriddham Rajyam suranam avichadipadyam Sanjaya uvacha Deva mukta rishikesham Gudakesha parantapa Nayosya iti govindam Utva tushnim babhuvaha Prabhuvacha rishikeshaha Rahasanniva bharata Senayorubhayor madhye Vishidantamidam vachaha.
To understand life in its reality, to understand the truths of life, to accept the truths of life, you need courage. And courage comes through knowledge. And to approach the knowledge, you need courage. That's a vicious cycle. Again I repeat, to accept the truths of life, to understand the facts of life, you need courage. And courage comes through knowledge. That's where that man wrote outside his academy, knowledge is power. It is knowledge that gives courage. It is understanding that gives courage. The truths of life is very simple. There is no difficulty in understanding not in understanding. To understand it as an intelligence, to understand it as something external is not very It's not very difficult. But to accept it, you need courage. No ordinary courage. Extraordinary courage is required. As long as you are comfortable being part of the crowd, you can never gain knowledge. As long as you are comfortable being part of a crowd, knowledge can never seep in, because there is a solace already, there is a comfort already, and that comfort, the solace, comes from the crowd. Even the so-called strength also comes from even the courage also comes through the crowd. Again I repeat, to understand knowledge, why courage is required is because knowledge demands that you move away from the crowd, and all your ignorance, weaknesses says be part of the crowd and learn and understand everything without moving away from the crowd. So where courage is required is to move away from the crowd. That crowd is what we call as conditioning, which comes from the past. It's undigested knowledge that keeps coming from the past. And so long as you are comfortable with this crowd, you can never gain true understanding, true knowledge. And this very word knowledge implies two things. The very word knowledge means two things. One is a kind of knowing where you actually don't know anything. Knowledge, the word knowledge is so difficult to explain. You know, and yet you will not know. That is also one type of, that is also knowledge. And then there is another kind of knowledge in the sense of awareness. There is a knowledge by which you know so many things, and yet you do not know it. For example, I'll give a simple example. You would have heard so many times about the discourse on possessiveness. How many times you would have heard this discourse on possessiveness? You know it. But this knowing hasn't taken away your possessiveness. In fact, you know how to be possessive and also tell yourself that you are not possessive. Again I repeat, by all this what has happened is, you continue your possessiveness, at the same time you know how to tell yourself that you are not possessive. Therefore, there are the word knowledge has two connotations. One is knowing, and yet you don't know it. Another type of knowing, the true knowing, another type of knowing, which is the true knowing, is where the transformation has happened. When transformation has happened, you can call it as the actual knowledge. Till the transformation hasn't happened, till the transformation hasn't happened, the knowledge is not knowledge has not seeped in. Knowledge is not complete. Partial knowledge is ignorance. Please understand that. Partial knowledge is being, you can't say, I don't know it fully, sir, to whatever extent I know. What you cannot tell yourself is partial knowledge is ignorance. That's why I said you need courage to say that. But the partial knowledge will give you a kind of a comfort, a solace. What is that solace? Okay, I am in the right direction at least now. Maybe just a question of time, sir, I'll catch up with you, or maybe I'll overtake you also. Maybe, no, just wait, it's just a question of time. Because I have partial, first thing, partial knowing is, there is no knowing. Partial knowing is only ignorance. Are you able to follow? Partial knowing is only ignorance. And what is the true type of knowledge? What is the real knowledge? The real knowledge is in the sense of either a transformation or in the sense of being aware. The child does a mistake and you point out to the child that you have done a mistake. The child understands and it tells you, I am sorry. The child says, I am sorry. But you understand that sorry is meaningless. But you understand the child is saying sorry is absolutely meaningless. Why? Next day it will do the same thing again. Next day it will do the same thing again. Therefore, that knowing is actually not knowing. But very difficult to convince oneself, because the child will say, I have genuinely said sorry, what is your problem? Why are you still saying, I don't know? At least say that I knew it for 5 minutes, no. Okay, you know it for 20, maybe you know it for 1 hour. I know it for 5 minutes. The difference between you and me is only that gap, but not the gap of knowledge and ignorance. That's how the mind argues. The mind argues and says, the gap is not between knowledge and ignorance, the gap is in between. You know something for, if you can retain your knowing for 1 hour, I retain my knowing for partial knowing is not knowing. It is as good as being ignorant. Correct. Seriya? Number 1. What is partial knowing? Partial knowing is dangerous, because the ego will know how to hide behind that partial knowing. The ignorance will know how to hide behind that partial knowing, and you won't even know that it is hiding there. Again I repeat, partial knowing is far more dangerous, because the ego will hide behind that knowing, and you won't even realize that it is there. That's why I said knowing means transformation. Knowing means awareness. In transformation, you will not repeat it again. In awareness, you will not repeat it. You will not repeat it again. The very fact that it is being repeated means knowing has not yet happened. Therefore, the only way to develop the knowing is by the process of manana, reflection. Repeated study, repeated analysis, till the knowledge crystallizes, till the knowledge stabilizes. You follow what I am saying? And what is this reflection? The capacity to go through it again and again and again, because transformation has not yet happened. When the Western philosophers 200 years back, when they had access to the Vedic knowledge, they were shocked. Why they have been repeating the same Gita for 5,000 years? Why can't they do something? Why can't you be creative and write Why do you have to repeat the same thing again and again and again? And you go to the Upanishads. They say it is 20,000 years, 30,000 years. No one knows what. But then it is very, very old. Why are you guys holding on to that which is old? You fellows are not moving forward. And then the beautiful conclusion. Then he writes, but then now I understand why they do it. That reflection. Why? Because anything that is known partially, the ego hides behind it. And it can tell you that, and it can tell you what? You don't have it anymore. That's why I gave this example. See, we have heard about the possessiveness so many times. So many times you have heard. But that analysis has not brought any change, because the possessiveness are still, the old possessiveness is still continuing, and I am trying to get something. As I am continuing with my old, I am trying to get something new also. I say, my house. I say, my house. The house doesn't say in return that I am yours. You say, my house. And then you ask, how do you say it is my house? You will say, don't think it's all ancestral property, sir. All my hard work. All my hard work. See the property in my name. No EMIs also. Vedanta I follow fully. No loans, no nothing. All is, see, it's mine. One-sidedly you go on saying it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. The house doesn't in return says, I am yours. The mother goes on saying, my child, my child, my child. The child in return doesn't say, my mother. The intensity I am talking about. The child also says, my mother, has more of an academic interest. That's all. What is your father's name? What is your mother's name? That's all academic interest is. The intensity with which the mother says, my child, that child is so busy preparing itself to call something else as mine. Are you able to follow? My grandfather had some dreams about my father. He was busy weaving dreams for my father. And my father said, you keep your dreams, I will do what? But blissfully what he did, he started weaving dreams for me. I said, you do, you keep your dreams, I will do what I want to. But then what I will do? Sitting here, I will be weaving a dream for my daughter now. And what she will tell me? You keep your dreams, I will do. That's how all possessiveness ends in misery. All possessiveness ends in misery. Because one-sidedly you go on saying, it's mine. In return, the courtesy doesn't come back. No one says, I am yours. See, where the fallacy is here. See, where the fallacy lies in this. In the first few months, maximum 1.5 years, 2 years, that's all. After that, it doesn't exist anymore. The first 1.5 years, 2 years, someone takes the child and the child looks around and the mother is there, what it will do? What it will do? Even yesterday morning I was watching that. I was telling the mother, don't get fooled by this accent. And all get fooled by that. The child jumps with so much of what? So much of joy, affection, and the mother is completely fooled by that. By what? Child is mine. Not if only you have one bit of knowledge, you will understand this is what you did when you are a child. And when that mother stands in front of you now, how does she appear like? How does she appear? Abba, no. But when exactly the courtesy comes back to you, the child will. So, knowledge says, serve them, but don't be possessive. And you have heard this analysis many a times. Oh, illa sir, pudusa irukku enniki. This is something you have not told this before. No, it's the same story again and again and again. You follow what I am saying? But then the possessiveness doesn't leave. You go on saying mine. 10 times you say mine. You actually believe? A kind of, I can't say knowledge, a kind of something will settle in you, making you to actually believe that it is yours. Knowledge tells you whatever you call as yours is not yours. That which is yours you do not know. That which is yours you do not know, and you do not bother to find it out. That which is not yours, you go on claiming it as yours, and you actually believe that it is yours. From where does that sense of knowing, use the word knowing within quotes here, that sense of knowing, what is that sense of knowing? It is mine. It is mine. Whatever that mine is, doesn't matter now. And everyone is so sure about this knowing. What is that knowing? There are certain things that is mine. And you cannot even doubt it. You cannot even doubt it, because it has gone so deep into you. What is it that it is? Yours. And it appears as though it is yours because of sheer repetition. It appears that it is yours because of just because you repeat it again and again and again, it starts appearing as. Hitler said, repeat a lie 10 times, you will start believing it as the truth. Others will still say you are lying only, but you will actually believe it as the truth. Just a sheer repetition. Why I am saying so much is because manana is also a kind of repetition only. There is a difference between the two. So much of explanation I am giving only to bring about this distinction. We say knowledge turns into wisdom through manana, reflection, repetition. The whole problem is because of repetition, and manana is also another kind of repetition. How is it that is going to solve this problem? You understand? So knowledge says repeat it. Repeat what? Repeat the whole analysis again and again and again, because the transformation has not yet Transformation has not yet happened. You go on saying. Continue the same analysis. If you have to say something as mine, your repetition alone is not enough. There has to be a standard. There has to be a yardstick. Correct? For you to say something as mine, there has to be a yardstick against which you can measure and say, yes, this is truly mine. What is that? What is that yardstick? Number one. Number two, and that yardstick must be unfailing. And that yardstick must be unfailing. You can't have a yardstick that is changing. So you need to have a yardstick. You need to have something to measure to understand what is truly yours, and that has to be immaculate, complete, perfect. That's where all Shastras, all enlightened masters, they say, keep that yardstick. And they will not allow you to discuss also. They will say what that yardstick is. Keep that as the touchstone. Keep that as the yardstick. And that yardstick doesn't fail at all, because that yardstick is not only to you, it's the same for everyone. Then it is a complete, correct yardstick. All masters, all Shastra says, if you are wise, you will keep death as that yardstick. If you are wise, if you are intelligent, if you are wise, you will keep death as the yardstick. Why death as the yardstick? Because that which can accompany you there is yours. That which cannot accompany you there is not yours. That's all. You keep this as a yardstick, you will walk out of this classroom 50 Buddhas, and world cannot manage 50 Buddhas. The world will collapse. If you are wise, you will keep a yardstick. What is that yardstick? Death has to be that yardstick. Why death as the yardstick? Why death as the yardstick? Number one, that is that which is for sure going to happen to you. Not only for sure is going to happen to you, it's going to happen for everyone around you also. Therefore, keep that as the yardstick, and then find out all that you call as yours has any relevance to that. If you keep death as the yardstick, you will be frightened now. You will not be worried about dying. It's not that you will not be frightened to die. You will be so scared now, because painstakingly all that you have called as yours, you will come to understand what? It's not yours. Starting from everything, starting from your knowledge, starting from your emotions, starting from this body, down to the objects and beings outside, down the line, you will disconnect yourself from that. This disconnect is what is called as sannyas. Practicing, this is renunciation, this is sannyas. Down the line you have disconnected from everything, because you understand that it's not yours. If it is not yours, then it's not yours even now. That's how you get worried. That's where the fear comes. You will say, okay. Take the chair with the handle. Take the chair with the handle. It's easy. There are so many chairs there, no? So, give him one. It's okay. That which is not yours then cannot be yours now. Therefore, detachment happens now. It's not that you wait to die to get detached. It means you have not yet understood. You follow what I am saying? That which is not yours then is not yours now. Or understand it like that. Keeping death as the yardstick, investigate everything. You say, I am touching, I am seeing, I am hearing, I am feeling. The moment you develop this understanding, what will you say? It is the eyes that is seeing and I have nothing to do with it. Why? Because? Why? Because it's not accompanying you. Full stop. So instead of saying, I am seeing, you will say, eyes are seeing. You become like a Gautam Buddha already. Yeah, you become a Buddha already. You follow? Someone is abusing. You say, the ears are hearing, I have nothing to do with it. You will not start crying. Someone is praising you. You will not feel ballooned. You will say, the ears are hearing, I have nothing. This much of knowledge is required to take away all that which is not yours. I am not going to the entire analysis. If I go into the entire analysis, the whole day will go in that only. You follow? It doesn't stay. Are you okay with this? Are you okay till now? This okay na, artha next level of danger comes in artham. So don't say, okay, say I don't agree sir. Then you are, okay, if you say okay na, you are asking for deeper trouble. That all possessions is a product of action. That which is the product of action will leave you. That which is the product of action leaves you. Again I repeat, all acquisitions is the product of action. Like with so much of difficulty I learned that German language with so much of difficulty. And last week I was sitting with that boy just to see something in German. I couldn't even follow that. I need to really struggle to understand that fourth. Yeah. And it was only 4 sentences, not one whole literature, just ordinary sentences. What I should say now? Should I say I know German or should I say I don't know? What should I say? I don't know. But then I cannot say I don't know. Why? But then I cannot say I don't know. Why? Because I know it 20 years back, but now I forgot. The question is, do you know it or no? Yes or no? Do I know? Yes or no? That which is the product of action will leave. It's not yours. Even though you can claim you are the one who. Are you able to follow what I am saying now? Even though you can claim you are the one who did the action. Even though you are the one who claimed that you did the hard work. Supposing in your school you would have done extremely well in chemistry and you have scored 95, 100 also. Now you won't even remember. Now you won't even know one word. Now the question is, do you know chemistry or do you know or you don't know? But the degree certificate in front of you makes you to believe that you know. The truths of life tell you that you don't know. You need courage to accept what? I don't know. Are you able to follow? But then I go on saying, I know. So there are two types of knowledges. There is one type of knowledge that I gain and I lose. Are you able to follow the analysis now? So there is one type of knowledge that I gain and I lose. And then there is another kind of knowledge that is not lost. That knowledge is what chapter 2 he calls as Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. While all other knowledges leaves you, this knowledge doesn't. What will leave you upon death? The memory of the verses might leave you. Your ability to sit and explain that will leave. Again, carefully follow. When you say this knowledge doesn't leave you, it's not that you will wake up in next Janma with all the 700 verses of the Gita known. Apura adile vera confusion. In which way of chanting? Our way, your way. Who's chanting it? Indirectly. Not that knowledge. So there are two things. There is a type of knowledge that you lose. Then there is another type of knowledge that just stays. The knowledge that it is always there, how can you lose it? This is the conclusion. The knowledge that was always there, how can you lose it? Therefore, in truth you have not lost it. You have only forgotten about it. You have not lost it. You have only forgotten about it. You understand? That knowledge that is truly yours is always there. If it is always there, how can you lose it? Are you able to follow? The very fact that it is always there means you have not lost it. But what is possible that you have forgotten? That's where in Sankhya Yoga, chapter 2, he starts with the highest knowledge. What is that highest knowledge? You are that. He starts with that. Because that is the only truth. That's the only reality. He starts with the highest. You are that. And Arjuna has no clue to what he is. Arjuna has no clue to what Krishna is talking about. He must be looking at him blank. What I am asking and what are you talking? Greek and Latin, no correlation at all. And yet, he starts with the highest, Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. Why he starts with the highest knowledge is because the solution lies only in knowledge and understanding. and he is going to repeat the same knowledge in various ways, right through the 18 chapters. Don't think he is going to say something new. He is going to say the same thing again and again and again in various ways. Why he says the same thing in various ways? Because since you are not knowing how to reflect, he is doing the reflection for you. He is reflecting for you, where he has become wise already. There is no need for him to do it. But then you do not know how to repeat. The only way that you know repetition is what? One way of repeating. You repeat something again and again and again, you become unconscious, you fall off to sleep. That's your way of repetition. Again I repeat. One way of repetition that you know is you repeat something again and again and again. That constant repetition makes you unconscious. Kind of unconscious. Kinds of what is that? Kind of sleepwalking. What is that called? Somnambulism. Correct. It's like that. You walk around. From outside it looks like you are awake. In truth you are not awake. You wake up in that's where the Upanishad gives this example of ox in the oil mill. The ox in the oil mill. It goes through it goes round and round and round, day in and day out. It takes rest in the night. It takes rest in the evening. It re-energizes itself, vitalizes itself, wake up in the morning to do the same thing again. You also work the whole day, get tired, go to sleep, gather all the energies, wake up in the morning, refreshed, and do what? Same thing. This is also a kind of repetition. But then this repetition makes you, so one kind of repetition is that which makes you unconscious. Kind of unconscious. Like, see, for example, if you are driving on the same road again and again and again, after a while what happens? After a while what happens? The car goes almost by itself. Where it has to take a left, it takes by itself. Where it has to take a right, it takes right by itself. And what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't tell us, sir. Everyone is doing that. Therefore we all know what we do. Elsewhere, mind has gone elsewhere. You understand? That's also a kind of repetition. It's a kind of a lullaby it is. It's a kind of makes you to fall asleep. One kind of repetition. See, the tragedy in the meditation classes today is that meditation that is supposed to bring awareness, it makes you to sleep. Exactly the ulta effect. Because it's a kind of anything that is repeated monotonously again and again and again, what will happen? Will fall off to sleep. That's the mother's technique of making the child sleep. That's the mother's technique. No, the child is not sleeping. Mother wants to sleep desperately. When the mother wants to sleep desperately, the child is wide awake. Yeah. And the mother knows the technique of how to make the child sleep. And she starts singing lullaby. What is that lullaby? How she sings a lullaby? Same monotonous tune. Again and again and again, both falls off to sleep. That is one kind of repetition. Manana, reflection, is that repetition which brings awareness. You become, out of this repetition, you become more aware, more alert, more sharp, more precise. What is that alertness? You say, eyes are seeing, and unnecessarily I have been saying I am seeing. You know how to segregate. This is what he calls as Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. And being an enlightened master, he has to start with the highest. He has to start with the highest knowledge. It's not that he doesn't know, that Arjuna cannot understand what he is talking. He also, more than anyone, he knows what. It's like talking in the air, where there is no what they call as cry in the wilderness. No one to, and Krishna knows it very well that it is that Sankhya Yoga chapter 2 is cry in the wilderness. But still he does it. Why? What is the reason? What is the reason? The reason is only one. He knows your true nature. He knows your true potential, which you have forgotten. He knows your true nature. He knows your true potential. He knows what you are capable of. So he is trying to touch that. And when we tell him we are not ready for this, he will start from another, and he'll go and he'll start from another. And therefore, Sankhya Yoga, he starts with the Sankhya means knowledge, the yoga of knowledge, the highest knowledge. For all practical purposes, rest of the Gita is only a repetition of what is being said here, again and again and again in various forms, which is manana, which is reflection. Understand the difference. One kind of repetition makes you to fall asleep, and then there is another kind of repetition which makes you more aware, more alert. What is that alertness? You say, I am eating. Actually, you don't eat. You don't even know what you are. You don't even know what you are eating. Because as you are eating, mind has gone elsewhere. Therefore, even though you claim that you are the doer, you actually do not know, because there is no awareness backing it. There is no alertness backing it. And yet you say, I am the doer. Kind of somnambulism. Kind of sleepwalking. Here, he rudely wakes you up. When he wakes you up, the sleeping child, when you wake up, child will get angry. And you will get angry too. Because sleep is the comfort. That's where you tell the child, get up. Don't get used to the comfort of sleep. Correct? We all tell the child, wake up. No, why? Because sleeping is a kind of comfort. And the moment the child is used to that comfort, it cannot do, and we are also used to that. We are also like that child, used to the comfort of sleeping. And the master says, what? Wake up. When he rudely wakes you up, chances are you will get angry. chances are you will get angry. And you will not cooperate. You wake the child up. The child will not cooperate. Because the comfort of sleep, you understand, it's destroying. It's self-destructive. Correct? The comfort of sleep is self-destructive. That's why tamas is self-destructive. It is a comfort, but it is self-destructive. So he says, he rudely wakes you up. And when he rudely wakes you up, if you wake up, you will get angry. And the child does another technique. What is the other technique the child does? Pretends. Correct. Child pretends to sleep. The moment the child starts pretending, you have to give up. Because you can't do anything. Here we are pretending to be. Here we are. If you are factually asleep, you will wake up in anger. The problem that we are not waking up in anger because we are pretending to be asleep. And the pretension comes from where? Pretension comes where? I know it already. Oh, Gita, I know it, sir. To an extent where you can correct me also most of the times. And that knowing makes you to, will not allow you to. So what he does, various ways of analysis, various ways of repeating the same thing again and again and again, only to induce what? Induce? Wake up. Wake up. That's the most wonderful prayer of that seeker. And that's the only prayer of any seeker in the world. That's the only prayer of any seeker in the world. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Gamaya means lead me, lead me, lead me. That's the only prayer of the seeker. The first prayer and the last prayer of the seeker is what? Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from mrityorma amritam. Lead me from mortality to immortality. Lead me from non-existence to existence. Asatoma, asat and sat. Today we are existing and non-existing. That's why it is called a kind of somnambulism. You are awake and you believe that you are awake, and while you are factually, it's kind of, you can't even call it full sleep, because if you are fully asleep, you will wake up. But then it's not, you are not woken up, but then you are not yet sleeping. What can you call the state as? What would you call the state as? An unconscious state. An ignorant, a state where you lack alertness, a state where you lack awareness. So what the seeker does, he has this prayer. What is the prayer? Lead me from asat to sat, non-existence to existence. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from mortality to immortality. To that seeker, the highest knowledge. What is that knowledge? What you are seeking is there already. what you are seeking, you are that already. All that you have to do is what? Remembrance. Just remember your true nature. Because of continuous association with the false, you have assumed a false nature. Just because of continuous association. Now, reverse the process. Gain the true knowledge. What is the true knowledge? The true knowledge of knowing who you are. To know who you are, you have to negate that which you are not. That's true knowledge. That's what he is doing. All that you claim as yours, bit by bit, he will remove, saying that it's not yours. What is left behind is authentically yours, truly yours. And that you are. Continuously, people call you by the name for 30-40 years. You actually believe? It has gone so deep into your unconscious that in a room, try it out. At least I try all that. Even 2 weeks back I tried. When all were asleep, no one knew that I tried it also. In a room where there are 20 sleeping, all in deep sleep. I come and shout, Subramaniam, who will wake up? It's a sound. Not everyone will wake up. Correct? Are you able to follow? Because it has gone so, that repetition has gone so deep that you actually believe. What you don't realize is, you can be any name. The question, you can be any name. You follow what I am saying? I still remember, very first trip I went, here we don't know that our passport, we have this problem of name, surname, first name, last name, too much of confusion with all that. All along I am used to people calling me by my name. I was sitting there and they are saying some other name, and I was waiting, and the person saying, sir, they are calling your name. I said, Ramakrishnan Aravindan, and they are saying, and I was sitting there thinking they are calling someone else. I was thinking, how did I not even know my name? But then, because that 11 hours flight, I couldn't sleep. And all were asleep, I am wide awake thinking, how did I not even know my name? I was sitting and thinking, what a foolish fellow I am. And a foolish fellow doesn't even know my name. And the teacher thought, I know Vedanta and he is sending me to teach Vedanta. Here I am. When someone is calling my name, I don't even. But then it's not because in my unconscious, my name has gone so deeply ingrained as whatever the name is. I didn't realize that passport there they have a surname, this name, that name and all. You follow what I am saying? This is called being. What is this called? Unconscious. Even though I am awake, I am not awake. Even though you look like you are awake, you are not yet awake. And the repetition, instead of waking you up, makes you fall off to sleep. Opposite to that is what? Opposite to that is the knowledge, which is supposed to wake you up. And if you have to wake up, alertness is required. Alertness is required. That's where this knowledge is given at the youngest age, when the capacity to absorb is highest. Udhana. Because alertness is required to receive this knowledge. And after falling off to sleep, you cannot receive anything. See, sometimes, have you ever noticed, you would have read 3 pages in a book. Suddenly you realize that you crossed 3 pages and didn't even register one word. Has anyone had that experience? Everyone, read 3 pages I've read through, and then suddenly I realize what? Where did I land? And not even one word I could. So even though, now what would you call that reading as? Is it reading or asleep? What is that state called? Unconscious state. Unconscious while you are conscious. It's a kind of weird state. A kind of ignorance. The Sankhya Yoga, the highest knowledge is to wake you up. And if you need to wake up, you need alertness. And he knows how to keep you alert. The only way to keep you alert is to keep poking at you. There is no other. Alertness will not come if you are not poked. Therefore you find Krishna straight away touches that spot in him that should not be touched straight away. Because the only way to bring your alertness is by poking at you. And Krishna knows how to keep you, and Krishna knows how to wake up Arjuna, and Krishna knows how to wake up anyone. When he touches, he woke up to start all over. Follow the sequence. Krishna just touches that spot in him, he wakes up to start the same story all over again. Thank God he didn't repeat another chapter. 5-6 verses order he stopped. Then he suddenly realized, what am I talking? The same thing again and again and again. The ox in a oil mill. That's the example of the Upanishad. The ox in the oil mill. Again and again and again. You say the same thing. Then he asked Krishna, please get me out of this. Get me out of this. And from verse 11, Gita starts. Proper Gita starts from verse 11. 10 more verses. Again we have to listen to Arjuna. Verse number 1. Sanjaya says,
Sanjaya uvacha tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashupurna kudekshanam vishidantamidam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha Sanjaya uvacha tam tatha kripaya vishtam Ashtrapurna Pudekshanam Vishidantamidam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha
2 and 3 படிச்சிருங்க.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastvakashmalamidam Ishame Samupastitam Anaryajushtamasvaryam Akirtikayamarjuna Klaivyam Asmadhamah Partha
उपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप. He know what to touch. He knew where to touch. Arjuna, he touched. First Sanjaya says, follow the continuity from the previous chapter. In the previous chapter he laid his bow and arrow and said, I cannot fight. And Sanjaya says, what? Sanjaya is continuing the report. What is the report? To such a person, Arjuna, who was overcome with pity, eyes were filled with tears, agitated, despondent, a very ordinary human being. That's all it means. Tears in the eyes means crying constantly. The first thing in life you learn is to cry, and you don't forget this lesson for the rest of the life. You keep crying for everything, only to cry. And Arjuna is crying. Not the tears of devotion, not the tears of enlightenment, the tears that is coming out of agitation and despondency. Not the tears of devotion, not the tears of the Mirabai, not the tears of Chaitanya, not the tears of Krishna, but the tears coming out of despondency, agitation. To him, Madhusudana, Krishna spoke these words. And what did he say? Beautiful. How can you get dejected, Arjuna, in a crisis? You look at him and say, what are you talking? Crisis only you will get dejected. No. He's saying something so contrasting. What is it? Whence has this dejection come upon you? That too in a crisis. Unworthy of an Aryan, attaining neither heaven nor fame. Arjuna suddenly showing some sign of, what is he? He was a man who didn't say anything, suddenly saying something. And he was slightly attentive. Verse number 3, he touched that spot. Yield not to unmanliness, O Partha. The worst thing that you can call a soldier, a caliber of warrior of Arjuna's caliber, you don't tell him? You don't tell him? What? Unmanliness. Why unmanliness? If you are a coward, you don't have come into the battlefield. If you are a courageous person, you will fight. Having come into the battlefield, you want to run away. What kind of a man are you? Shudram Hridaya Daurbalyam. You are neither a man nor a woman, Arjuna. He touched that. All that he did is touch that spot. When a person is tired of talking, touch one spot, that's all. And then he'll start all over again. And if only you know how to do this, you don't have to waste your breath at all. They will talk, they will get tired, and then just touch that point. Again they will start. Two wonderful starting points of Gita. Number 1, how can you get dejected in a crisis? What is crisis? Crisis is a situation that you cannot handle. What is the definition of a crisis? A situation that you can handle, a situation that you cannot handle. A crisis is a situation that you cannot handle. Obviously you will get dejected. In a situation that you can handle, where is the Where is the dejection? You know how to handle it. And a crisis is a situation that you cannot handle. Therefore, dejection is natural. Unnatural. Yes. Dejection is understandable. It's natural, sir. And yet, wonderful is that message. Wonderful is that starting point. What is that starting point? How can you get? Whence has this dejection come upon you? That too because all preparation, all wisdom is to why do you become wise? What is the purpose of wisdom? He spoke like a wise man, but not. What is the result of that wisdom? What is the result of that wisdom? Crying, dejected, despondent. Are you able to understand the difference? A crisis is a situation that you cannot handle. Please understand this. Life creates situations. It doesn't create crisis. Life creates only situations. It is your ability or inability that turns the situation into crisis or not crisis. Again I repeat. Life creates situations. In neutrality it creates. Again I repeat. Life creates situations, and the situations created by life is neutral by nature. It is your ability to handle or your inability to handle. The situation that you know how to handle is normal, sir. Ordinary situation. A situation that you cannot handle is a extraordinary situation. That's called a crisis. Wisdom implies two things. For a wise man, the possibility of crisis doesn't exist. For a wise man, the possibility of crisis doesn't exist. For an ignorant man, crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. You understand? In the process of wisdom also, the very purpose of wisdom is what? To handle situation, not a. Please understand the difference. Wisdom says no crisis. All that you need to know is ability to handle it. And there are various ways of handling crisis. Situations. Most of the situations, the best way to handle is ignore. We do not know what to ignore, what not to ignore. What to ignore, we will pay much attention to. What should not be paid attention to, we will pay much attention. Yeah, there are various ways of handling. The best way is, that's why they say keep moving, keep going. Keep going means what? Otherwise, you are lagging behind, paying much attention to it. The very fact that you are paying much attention to it is what is making it bigger. Again I repeat. The fact that you are paying much attention to it is what is making it bigger. Supposing if something bigger is there in front of you, this will become insignificant. Supposing my legs are paining, I can't walk. Suddenly the curtain is on fire. I will start running. You can't arrive. 5 minutes back you are like, Like a fully pregnant lady you were walking. Now why are you running now? What does it mean? A different? We know only what? All energies comes to us not through wisdom. Comes to us from the situation, huh? Fear of life, survival. Very close. Very close. Survival. Survival. That's why even though I know that I am going to die, I write all my property to my children. Why? Why? Survival. Because through them, I am still alive through them. That's where you cannot give it to someone else. You have to give it to your own. Why? Because through them, you are still, because this body, you cannot live through this body, but you can live through them. My name is there, no sir. Survival. All energies, all difficulties that we arise, that we experience is because of somehow the ego wants to survive. Somehow the ego wants to be erect. Somehow. And it will do anything to be erect. If it has to put an act of humility to be erect, it will do that also. Do you know that? For the ego to be erect, it can act very humble also. Because the ego is there is what? I am a very humble person is the weird is the ways of ego, and you have no knowledge of how it can. That is one side. And the other side is you prepare life. You prepare by gaining knowledge to handle what? You prepare by gaining knowledge to the school, to the college, to the university, to everything. You prepare gaining knowledge to handle what? To handle not situations, not crisis, to handle challenges, life, to handle life, to handle this entity called life, you learn, you gain so much of knowledge. At the actual time that you have to start handling, what happens? Like Arjuna we become. Not knowing how to handle. Therefore, first thing that he is telling Arjuna is what? All the words of wisdom he spoke, Arjuna, is not wisdom, because wisdom knows no crisis. That's where the wise man is a courageous man. I started by saying knowledge gives you courage, because the man of wisdom has extraordinary courage, because there is no possibility of crisis, doesn't exist at all. Unworthy of an Aryan. Aryan means the glorious race, the race of wise men. In that race of wise men, you are the only Anaryan. If Krishna were to look at any one of us, he will tell the same thing. It doesn't mean others are, that everyone is attaining neither heaven nor Fame. Fame is immediate benefit, heaven is future benefit. Fame is benefit here, heaven is a future benefit. By this action of yours, there is no benefit now, there is no future benefit. Fame implies benefit now. Heaven implies benefit at the future. By this action of yours, Arjuna, no benefit now, no benefit. Therefore, this action of wanting to run away is it's a useless action. The action of wanting to run away is the most useless action. That's where running away is. And who will run away? Who will run away? A coward will run away. And you are the best in, and you are the best amongst the cowards, Arjuna. All along Arjuna was waiting for a certificate that Krishna will say, what a wise man you are. He turned around and said, you are the best amongst the cowards. He touched that spot. Abra, don't worry. From verse 4 to 8, Arjuna will start. That's next week. Why I wanted to read 2 and 3 together is because, having explained so much of what knowledge is, I can't start all over again next week. I have to come up with some new story for the next week. So might as well conclude. Wisdom knows no crisis. Number 1. Number 2, by running away is an useless action. Running away is an useless action. That's why we say, by running away to the Himalayas, what are you going to get? Because it's an useless action. But those who do useless actions appear very, very holy. That's our tragedy. That man is doing an useless action. What is that useless action? Action of escaping, running away. And by this, why it is an useless action is because no benefit now, no benefit in the future. Therefore, all your actions derive no benefit now, no benefit in the future. Therefore, all your actions, Arjuna, is only a useless action. And who will perform useless action? Who will run away? A coward will run away. Not able to stand up and face. The coward runs away, Arjuna. And you are the yield not unmanliness, O Partha. He is invoking his race and saying you are the casting off this mean weakness of heart. That's his love and compassion. Casting off this weakness. Uttishta, arise. That's the call of the enlightened master. When he says Uttishta, arise, we fall off to sleep. That's the call. Uttishta Parantapa, arise, awake. Yama said this to Nachiketas. Yama said this to Nachiketas. Arise. If Yama has to tell Nachiketas, wake up na, I used to think, supposing if I am standing in front of Yama, what will he tell me? He will tell, Rahul, shoot them straight away. Such a waste of time. Uttishta, because Uttishtata, Jagrata, Paranneva Bodhata, Kathopanishad, to arise, awake, stop not till the goal is reached. Yama saying these powerful words to Nachiketas. Same thing he says. And carefully follow. Quite a few verses of chapter. As we go along, I'll keep telling you. Quite a few verses are from this Upanishad. Kathopanishad. In chapter 2. Verbatim he quotes. This is the starting point. Uttishta Parantapa. Veka. You are pretending to be sleeping. The difficulty with you is you are pretending to be asleep. Veka. Arjuna, instead of waking up, what he does, starts the story all over again. Another episode. Yeah. Another episode of Arjuna, that will continue next week. But what you should understand is this. The starting point of knowledge is what? The preparation to handle life. The moment you are prepared to handle life, there is no such thing called crisis. That's all. That's the starting point. That's why it's called Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. The starting point of life must be this knowledge, because you know how to handle life. There is no such thing as crisis. And we know only crisis. Crisis after crisis. Seriya?